Science, where our very honored guest is Buzz Aldrin, a man who, if I may be cliche, almost needs no introduction. We do all know him as the second man to step on the moon, but he's also brilliant in his ideas, being trained with a PhD in astronautics from MIT. I guess they don't call it astronautics anymore, do they, Buzz? It's more like aeronautics. And Buzz has written several books, and any of them you could check out. He's written several nonfiction books, but also a couple of fiction books, so those of you who are more interested in that. But we're going to talk today about some of the ideas contained within his latest book, which is Buzz Aldrin's Mission to Mars, My Vision for Space Exploration. So it's not just about Mars, it's about, should we go to the moon again? Should we visit asteroids, and should we visit the moons of Mars, and how would this all work, and ideas you've come up with over the years. So I'll let Buzz say a few words, and then I'll let Jeff ask the first question.
Well, and I'm just going to give Buzz his cue and say, since Mission to Mars, the book, and Mission to Mars, the idea, is sort of the backbone of the book and what we would like to talk about, that comes under the heading of what you call your Unified Space Vision, or USV. I thought, why don't we start by getting everyone on the same page? Give us your stump speech about the USV and why it's important and how to implement it, and then we can start the conversation there.
Well, considering the kind of lack of enthusiasm and lack of inspiration recently, 10, 15 years, really since retiring the shuttle, which in its trips to the space station hasn't been exactly outstanding for support of space exploration. It's occurred to me that really the obvious objective to be announced, let's say, by some president in the not too distant future should be U.S.-led international permanence on the planet Mars. I think we have demonstrated enough capability with robotic activities there to be able to improve significantly on robotic activities at the moon without the large expense of rockets and landers and supplies to support NASA, U.S. astronauts on the surface of the moon. We can do a lot of things from standoff locations that are natural libration points, L1 and L2, where we can test out the interplanetary spacecraft and its components, and some of them on the lunar surface if someone else will land some of those things for us, as they really must do for international corporations to proceed in the commercial utilization of resources on the moon and elsewhere past the moon, like asteroids. But really, the idea of U.S. leadership with international cooperation and expanding human presence outward are the keys to keep in mind when we consider interim activities. Do they support that objective?
That leads to your idea of doing this in what you call the stepping stone fashion, of using both Apollo and space station things as investments in technology, things that we already know about and need to leverage rather than just leave behind, and then working towards a goal of not just sending someone to Mars for the sake of sending someone there, but learning how to establish a permanent presence, but in a phased, sensible way that accomplishes lots of things on the way. It sounds good to me, but then you have to explain, against people, well, some people call and say, don't we need a crash style, an Apollo style crash program just to get someone to the Mars? And we say, no, it makes more sense to go a little slower. Why is this a better strategic thing to do?
Well, I was there at MIT at the beginning and as a participant near the end of the Apollo program, and we didn't really view it as a crash program. There was at the peak 4% of the budget allocated to the development of the capability. We're at a 0.5% right now, and we've been that way for a good while. And over the years, the political influence has shown up more and more to divert our efforts from long-term goals. We as Americans have to think of long-term goals throughout this century to remain a pride in our country's leadership capability that we all grew up with following World War II and through the Cold War. And the reaction to the Cold War was to outdo the Soviet Union, which we certainly did. And that investment seems to be willowing away. We're getting rid of that great investment that we made then, and the inspiration and the education rises to high status, and the innovation technically that the nation enjoyed after that.
And part of that problem then is that when funding is done directly by the Congress, then they're tied to political considerations and budget cycles. And that brings us around to your call for a united strategic space enterprise in order to get some more strategic view onto that, right?
Yes, absolutely. We need to trim down the disruptions that we've had. We had a wonderful program underway just about the time I was leaving NASA in 1970. But it failed to materialize, and we ended up with a space shuttle as technically advanced as it was really trying to do sort of too much with too little, and we've retired it without a replacement now because of a failure of another program of sending humans to the moon by 2020. Under the previous president, and it was not the president's fault. It was those implementing the program.
But you've also there's so many ideas there. But you've mentioned it, it's like there's no reason for us to go back to the moon, and you make a good case for that.
Well, yes, there is. There's a lot of science to be done, and a lot of commercial activities, starting with the ice crystals in the eternally dark areas of craters. That's water that can be used on the lunar surface by other people and ourselves, but brought up to orbit for a refueling depot, converting the water into hydrogen and oxygen for fuel for rockets.
As an important stepping stone in the mission to Mars.
Yes, and let me start out by repeating what I have to many people. 11 years ago, we landed 2 rovers on opposite sides of Mars. They were supposed to last 90 days. One of them stopped after 5 years, and the other one is still going on. Now, the program manager, who's intimately familiar with the issuing of daily controls and then watching to see what happens because of the great distance to Mars. He said that what they have done in the first 5 years could have been done in 1 week if human intelligence was in orbit around Mars. Now, that is extremely important when we consider what we can do from sort of extended orbits or stable locations on the far side and the near side of where the moon orbits. From those locations, we can do outstanding science, and we could do outstanding commercial activities, especially in cooperation with some of the other nations who may be landing larger objects and lifting off and bringing people back. We can do wonderful things at the moon, all of which, especially base building, which will help us remotely base build from the moons of Mars to the surface of Mars.
I want to add a comment about doing science using humans and not just technology. So this extends beyond just space science and exploration science. Even when we look at folding proteins, like a computer program just cannot do that as well as the human eye and the thinking patterns of humans. So there's other aspects of biology that I can relate to. So I can definitely see how having humans in space doing the work can accelerate our knowledge much faster than just beaming things back and forth technologically. I think I forgot the question I was going to ask. Oh, no, you mentioned several times that, first of all, you bring up all the different countries that are wanting to go to space as well. We've got China, and we've got India, and we've, of course, got Russia. So they're working to do more in space. In fact, the Chinese just sent 3 astronauts to space. In sort of the same breath, I hear you say, we need to take the lead as Americans to restore pride in our nation, but we also need to work collaboratively. So I'd love to hear you expand on that idea.
Well, we've decided, because of technology transfer reasons, that the Chinese and others are experts at copying what they can get a hold of, whether usually proprietary information through the internet or through other methods of discovering things that other people are doing. The restriction of communications in all spheres have kept us from inviting the Chinese to join the international effort on the space station, which I think would have assisted quite a bit in attaining a peaceful relationship among all nations above the atmosphere, hoping that would filter down. We're always going to have human rights differences of opinion and piracy concerns and territorial concerns, but hopefully some cooperative symbolic activities in space. The reason the Chinese are building their separate space station is because we didn't invite them to be a part of our space station. The Russians have generally cooperated fairly well with the Chinese, despite the gross difference in language, in written symbology, whereas the English-speaking nations, who I think saved the world from tyranny in World War I and certainly in World War II, and protected the world during the Cold War from mutual assured destruction, and I feel will be very instrumental in other spreads of radicalism in the future. And we should be cooperating more, especially with India in Asia, and considering the rise of technology and of the workforce advantages that Asia continues to have.
When I was reading the book, I had the impression that I wanted to test that among many very good reasons for having establishing the permanent presence on Mars as a as a visionary goal worth doing. I thought one of the things you seemed to feel it was very important for was that space exploration and development and this particular goal is big enough and visionary enough that it could actually be something to facilitate productive international cooperation that smaller things can't do.
Well, I certainly feel that, and I think we underestimate the impact for future generations, for historians, on the establishment of the history of the human race here on the planet Earth, then committing itself to a growing presence elsewhere with the technology that we have. The leaders, the organizations, the nation that commits itself to doing that is going to be respected for hundreds of thousands of years in the future, considering its impact on changes in life here on Earth and establishing life elsewhere. It is going to be a tremendous legacy for those fortunate people to make commitments and then to participate in the progression of fulfilling that goal. That's one of my major tasks, is to try and convince people that we need to lay the groundwork in this administration. So perhaps the next administration, or failing that, the administration that replaces the next administration.
So do we agree then that people generally discount how vital human adventure and exploration and discovery are, and that these are really essential parts of the human experience, that people say, oh, who needs to do that? We can send robots or something.
Well, we are very growing accustomed to getting what we want right away with new iPhones, new computers, and all the new technological gadgets. We all want to have them immediately. Well, you just can't do that with an aerospace system operating the way it has. And the technology developments and the risk avoidance that we put so much emphasis on. Exploration has always had risks involved in it. They're just more expansively recognized and finger pointing and whatever when we are trying to do technically the best that we can with a government activity, naturally, which carried out Apollo, and which I believe should be a government cooperative venture back at the moon with our helping other nations, and certainly our leadership of nations and not allowing commercial activities to try and take over the shortcomings of government executed programs. The exception to that, I think, is if we need a stimulation of the public, and we can come up with a mission like Inspiration Mars, flying a couple around Mars and back in a rather short period of time, will greatly stimulate the systems that NASA needs to itself develop the support systems needed for the future.
So that idea of tourism sort of exciting people in general, and also becoming a fact-finding mission as well, it seems very appealing, and there are definitely people who will pay for it. And I believe you even offered the suggestion in the book that this could even become something of not a lottery, but an opportunity to win this opportunity. You know, that would really stir up excitement and interest in, space travel, because so many people would be vying for this opportunity without having to have millions of dollars at their disposal.
Yeah, let me just note one existing situation. probably the most compensated people are the people in the entertainment business, the actors, the actresses, and all those making a big celebrity impression. Well, space people made a big impression working for the government, and we sure didn't get compensated hardly anything except normal, well, not even normal compensation for the activities we went through. So it's obvious that I've been to the moon, but I can't afford to go into orbit or to suborbit now. Not that that's what I would want to do, but other people can do that, and we need to put into perspective the opportunities that are available. And that's why I was a strong supporter of the idea of a lottery, but developing that with our restrictions and laws and state control. I've given up on that because of the AX Apollo Space Academy and the private company X-Core that has sold 22 rides suborbital to international applications. That's a wonderful opportunity, and I hope that that continues. And I believe their future looks well into achieving orbital flight, along with the three companies that are being subsidized by the government to provide transportation and cargo to the space station, because the government is unable to do that.
That's right.
Through its own actions that have resulted in canceling the shuttle system, which it deserved to do when the decision was made to stop flying it after 2010. But what we did up to that point left us without a means of a substitute for the shuttle, and that's inexcusable for a nation of our capabilities.
You said in the book, sort of in passing, that I was surprised at the small number of annual tourists that you said would be enough to sustain a reasonable tourist industry and actually develop some orbital capability commercially. And I thought that was rather encouraging, really, and that would provide, well, another useful stepping stone for the whole, building the whole system.
Yeah, it certainly provides the interest of a lot of people in the stories of people who are able to do suborbital flight as sort of a filler between the reduction of cost in getting objects into low Earth orbit. We, I think, have quite understood that if we stop throwing things away every time we launch something into space, if we can make those rocket systems reusable, then the companies don't make as much money making new rockets ad infinitum into the future. They're guaranteed a return. But if they make a reusable rocket, then we maintain those so that we maintain their reusability. And unfortunately, that's a dip in the income for the big companies supplying the rockets. Now, my son, who works for United Launch Alliance, doesn't agree with that, and he has major points. But I think some of those have probably hampered the development. Before I left NASA, we were well underway in a totally reusable system, a reusable orbiter with wings and wheels and a reusable booster with wings and wheels. And the result was canceling that policy and going forward toward a shuttle system in a hurry that required the use of solid rockets that can't be shut off for emergencies and many other distractions. And other stages that are very difficult and time consuming because of their complexity of the entire shuttle system with crew and cargo and everything on board. Anyway, we've retired that system.
Yeah, building the whole strategic, reusable, sustainable system in establishing a presence on Mars rather than using a throwaway technology just to get there is a key part of this vision too, right?
Well, yes. In 1985, I was exploring a continuously reusable system cycling back and forth between Earth and Moon, knowing that it would give tourists a good look at the Moon on the front side and on the back side for just a departure and intercepting the cycler coming back to Earth. It wasn't strategically useful for sending government people to the surface of the Moon.
Yeah.
So I was encouraged to look at that system and succeeded in coming up with a cycling orbit system between Earth and Mars. And the administrator of NASA endorsed that in his study in 1986. But since that time, despite great improvements at the University of Purdue, NASA has not paid any attention to that. And just today, I hear them wanting to develop nuclear propulsion. Well, how reusable is that going to be coming back to Earth with a nuclear rocket? And why do we need to get somewhere like Mars in a hurry with people if they're going to spend the rest of their lives there? 5-6 months is certainly good enough if it's a totally reusable system. At least the cycling system is.
Well, the cycling system is something that is still going to appeal to me. I'm aging, but I'm a product of the Apollo generation, growing up then, and the influx of technology support in schools and the need for scientists, and also a certain blossoming, I would say, of science fiction, and the idea of cyclers is something that seems very familiar to the point of, like, why would we not do that? It's an obvious solution to have these cruise ships almost that can carry things in a reasonably efficient, time efficient manner, but in an also a sustainable way and not a fuel using way to move things to Mars and back. It just seems like a really good idea.
We all go through a learning process. I put together what I think is one of the major contributions in my career, an outstanding science fiction story about travel between the stars, the closest star system, and just why a civilization would want to do that or be forced to do that. But as that story unfolded and became executed for the first time, it involved the desire to bring people back from another system that they had looked at. Now, that is not a good idea at all. You can send back all the information you want at the speed of light from one star system to another. Why would you want to send human beings back where they spent all that time getting there? And of course, I was caught up with the idea of going to Mars and making the fuel there necessary to bring people back. And then I considered, well, what are we getting out of the investment of sending people to Mars? We want to build up a critical number of people to handle all the activities that we want to do in the future. And we can't do that by bringing people back all the time.
This is a vision big enough that you can see all of the things we might like to do and capabilities for some time to come that we might like to build, like missions to asteroid and such, as a learning experience and a putting in place of the next step to building out this entire capability. Right?
I'd really like to make a point that when I submitted my unified space vision to the Augustine Commission, enabling the use of cyclers and the use of the moons of Mars, what was required was interplanetary transportation capability beyond the moon. And so I put into that proposal several intermediate steps developing the interplanetary spacecraft. A flyby a comet, a couple of opportunities, and visits to asteroids, but it was not to study the asteroid. It was to go somewhere that had a specific location and point to exercise the improvement in the interplanetary vehicle. Humans going to an asteroid don't accomplish very much except being able to control things from a very close distance away, which certainly has its advantages. But the commercial opportunities out of asteroids is something that the government really doesn't need to develop. Certainly, we need to look at planetary defense as a major long-term objective. But you have to track objects for a long time to find out exactly what a threat they are, and then how you deal with large objects. The consensus seems to be right now that the use of a push from a nuclear detonation may be the best way to move big objects. We can get political gain out of saying, "Oh, we're working real busily on planetary defense," just because a couple of asteroids have come and made their presence known to people here on Earth. The impacts are very few and very far between, and we should do all that technology allows. But bringing a rock back with government expense to look at diverts attention from what we could be doing to help other nations at the moon and learn how to build a base rather than learn how to bring a rock back from some place in space. That should be done for the commercial return. And we of course need science to be able to do that, but robots are quite good at understanding and transmitting the information from remote places as to what they've discovered in a scientific way. But you do need to look for a long period of time at many different things. And you can't keep humans there for very long to be looking at an asteroid, which may not come back again for 6, 8, 10 years the next time you can go to it economically.
But do you think the current what seems to be a current outbreak of asteroid anxiety might help people tune into your vision a little bit at least?
Well, yes, that's why my interim missions to qualify the interplanetary spacecraft for ambitious activities at the moons of Mars, where they would use the contents of those craft to be able to support people for long periods of time while they're building the permanent base on the surface. But we have to learn how to build a base at the moon, and the best way to practice that is on the big island of Hawaii, where we can make lots of mistakes, fine-tune the connective devices between fairly large objects, doing that not in the freedom of space, but on uncertain terrain. That's a big challenge, and we need to learn how to do that and not make mistakes at the moon, and certainly not make mistakes at Mars.
We have a lot of scenarios that people say, well, if this went wrong and this went wrong in any of these space things, I mean, a lot of things could have failed, and a couple things have failed here and there, but for the most part, space exploration has been very successful because we have these brilliant engineers and scientists on the job, you know, using their minds, working on this. And so from what I understand, and the way I feel about this too, is like the loss of a great space program loses this motivation among young people to be applying themselves into science and technology and engineering, and you even add art into this, the whole STEM concept. So I would love to hear a little bit more from you about what seems blindingly obvious to me, that the space program really helps foster scientific and engineering minds among the young people. And without that space program, we are losing some of that.
Well, for a number of years, I have sort of set my goals on trying to improve the education systems. And a very good idea was to getting corporations to help develop the curriculum for their future workers. But I was informed by very good analysis of very capable people that it's the system, not the curriculum. Just recently, I visited a very talented, unique collection of high school students right in the Los Angeles area, and found that they were developing improved arm manipulators for amputees so that they could get more feedback control over what the hand is touching. And the most exciting one was a group of students that had looked into the challenges of radiation in outer space and protection against that by layers of material that are available and need further testing to protect against solar flares, against background cosmic radiation, and against secondary radiation from the primary impacting on metallic or other parts and then producing secondary radiation. This is extremely exciting to be coming out of the minds of quite young people. This is a specialized school. It's not a public school system, and certainly the teachers are extremely talented, well selected. They're not parts of a union that is looking for guaranteed tenure and maximize the return and the privileges for the teachers. And if you find you don't have a very good one, it's very difficult to get rid of that. I'd like to, at this point, emphasize that more information of what I've come up with and managed to get online can be found at buzzaldrin.com. And I keep people up to date on what I'm doing, where I'm doing things, and where they could be checking on my contributions. And I do that through Twitter at The Real Buzz. The Real Buzz.
Buzz.
We'll post those links. Make sure everyone has them and know how to get your.
I've got my partner here, and I can slide up a chair and
that'd be great.
Introduce a wannabe Santa Claus, who's my very, very talented
your co-author, Leonard David,
executor of taking ideas that come from a group of people and translate those along with my son's contribution, who also lives in the Denver area. And whatever I pioneer, if it's any good, he'll be the one that I hope will carry on some of the aspects. Now, so right here is Leonard David, the hand that pushes the typewriter or whatever it is
beyond
these
the
days.
typewriter.
Yeah, he's a little beyond the typewriter, I guess.
I think so too. So we're here talking with Buzz about Mission to Mars, and his co-author has joined us. This is Leonard David, and you have written many places. You're a space journalist, and you've been writing for a very long time. And before I go on and ask you to speak a little more, I am going to say what the reason why everybody should read this book is because this book is for everybody. When I was reading it, I thought of my 19-year-old daughter who said, "Who's Buzz Aldrin?" And I'm thinking, well, what? I have failed. My 19-year-old didn't, but my 14-year-old knew. But I knew that you have enough history of the space program that can bring people who aren't up to date on the history to that And then I also, when I was reading this book on an airplane, an older lady next to me asked, what I was reading. And I said, well, he recounts this, but he's also bringing everybody up to date on what's happening with corporations and the newer projects, and then a vision for the future. So I feel like you've crossed the spans of time here. Some, bringing people up from the past, talking about what's happening now and ideas for the future. And that's why I think this book is accessible to everybody. And I thought you did that really well, you and Leonard. So, Leonard, I would love to hear about working on the book with Buzz.
Well, it was fun. I mean, I had a great time, and I think you hit on something that we try to make sure the readers know that, I mean, it's his mission to get to Mars, but in getting to Mars, that mission includes so many stepping stones. And there's the commercial space flight, there's space tourism, looking at asteroids, understanding asteroids for planetary defense. So we went through a lot of different things. It isn't just Mars specific, although those steps are really key to get the technology together, to get the capabilities together to move on to Mars and homestead Mars in the long run. So you hit on exactly one of the messages we're broadcasting to people about the book, and we did try to hit a good balance between technical and popularization of space. And I hope we achieved that, and I think so far the reviews have been good, and the audiences last night were terrific at the Nixon Library. We had a great turnout there.
I think you did achieve that, and I think both Joanne and I will be writing about that when we finally have a few free minutes to write about the books that we've been talking about. But given all, the vision is lovely, and the stepping stones and the excitement and things, and none of that goes if you don't enlist enough popular support, and that's what you're really busy doing right now, and that's got to be a hard slog. I mean,
we're
going
to generate some newspaper and magazine op-ed pieces on specific issues using the book as background. And it just occurred to me the great sense of satisfaction and admiration I have for my son's contribution by writing the foreword, which really makes a father feel so good when his son is able to trace through the reasons for and the high points. And I think we could almost print that as a standalone to people who are wondering whether this book is worth buying. They can always go into a bookstore and quickly browse by reading the foreword and the chapter headings to decide whether they want this book. But we could reach so many more people with his foreword and just a real quick description. I don't know what precedents have been set for for using that kind of a means of
let's see,
briefly
using forewords written by sons of people who've walked on the moon. Probably not a lot of precedents, I would say, but worth going for.
Yeah, especially when they're not interested in little small stuff, but big things.
Yeah.
And encapsulating ideas that I'm trying to get across.
I'll tell you the truth, when that forward came in, I cried. It was a very nice, touching, personal review of the book and Buzz and being his son, and it was very, it was great. And now I will say, though, the flip side of all that is I have many hours of these two guys debating space. And some of that probably for another book.
I don't see any reason to stop.
Great book. Yeah, I'd say go for it. I would love to read it because the foreword was very moving. I did enjoy that, and I thought it was a great touch to the beginning of the book.
Well, I've got to have an open mind because everybody makes mistakes, and I've changed my mind. And I was wondering a while back just what an international lunar base would look like. And nobody seems motivated in wanting to do that, so I just invented one of my own, and it still sounds like a pretty good use of of the available assets and the future assets that varieties of other nations could bring to the joint use, and allowing progress to be made, and especially learning how to do something there at the moon, where we can then do similar things at the planet Mars.
I want to hear about feedback on all of that and trying to enlist everyone's aid, but a specific question I wanted to be sure we get to was all of this. I have the feeling that you're looking for some commitment from someone. What would be the commitment, and from whom, that says we're finally set on the right path, we may be able to get there?
Well, you're almost reading my mind. I've been composing the generalities that I think could be laid as a foundation by this administration, and a good time to do that would be the 45th anniversary of the first landing on the moon. I think we have to validate the selection of a human mission out to some location like an asteroid to test out the interplanetary spacecraft, and then extend the commitment beyond just an intermediate step, but to human visits to the moons of Mars by 2030. Now, we certainly have to clarify our national position with regard to the moon. We need to rather quickly summarize that we're going to economize as much as possible in doing just the things at the moon that really contribute to commercial activities, to science, and to the ability to expand our capabilities that we'll demonstrate at the moon outward, and reach the moons of Mars and reach the surface of Mars. But the test ought to be, does do things that we are contemplating spending a lot of money on, do they really advance U.S. leadership in space transportation, and do they further human expansion outward in the solar system?
Because there's no denying, that's not a secret agenda. That's the explicit point of, it's something that we can do, and it's something we should be doing now.
Yeah, if we do something at this 45th anniversary, it just validates my feeling and what I'm going to be really trying hard to do, and that is the approach of the 50th anniversary of 6 out of 7 successful landings on the moon, and that spans the 2020 election year for the re-election of whoever is the next president, and a commitment before or after by some individual who's seeking that next term can certainly be motivating enough to honor the people, the 400,000 people, universities that contributed to this nation, demonstrating that we had the capability of successfully landing humans on the moon, and now it's time to reach even further with a specific time, objective, and commitment.
It's such a summary.
I was going to say.
One thing that happened last night that I thought was pretty interesting was, the applause meter went up high when the leadership question of America in space came up. Buzz has a pretty dramatic statement about that, and that definitely hit the chord for that audience. It was very interesting. The other thing that I noticed in San Diego, we've sort of been on a tour here in a way. When he starts describing still the first moon landing and being with Neil and going down to the surface, I mean, it's not like people don't know the ending, but yet they were breathless in the audience, wondering what was going to happen. He was describing the alarms going off and all these things, and it's not like the audience thought that maybe they crashed and he somehow survived, but it really is amazing to listen to. You can hear the audience, the breathing rate changes, because they're reliving this guy's flight down to the moon from 1,000 feet. Last night we did sort of the same thing, different kind of reaction, but it was very telling about, again, a milestone in history. And you always wonder what the audience is, because a lot of the younger people are there, which is really gratifying. There's people my age and all kinds of different ages that are there, but it's pretty exciting to hear him relive that last 50 feet. Like, will he make it? We're not sure.
This actually telling that reminds me of one of my favorite documentaries, and that's For All Mankind, where Al Reiner took just hours and hours of film and put that together and overlaid your voices and interviews with astronauts and some of Jim Lovell and all, adding commentary and with Brian Eno's music. It's beautiful. Now, this is a favorite of mine. Is this one of yours, Buzz, by any chance?
Well, it certainly is, because it lays out rather accurately the steps that were needed and accomplished in laying the groundwork to be able to do such a impossible dream in a way. And now many of us look upon that as rather ordinary activities of being able to do that, because we've done so much since then, but we just haven't had the right focus that has enlisted the strong support and enthusiasm of people. And somehow they're more used to shoot 'em ups in outer space and totally unrealistic things. And that's why I wrote a science fiction story in 1996, and I'm now trying to get into a TV series, because I feel that it really illustrates the human and non-human elements of things that we can't do at all, we can't really contemplate. But if you could do that, how would you go about doing it, and what would be the results for the improvement, not just of our world, but the worlds that could be around us?
That's right. That's right. So, you just think of young people who can't get through the day without that simple iPhone, but you guys got to the moon with much less technology. And, I think if nothing else, people should be revisiting, that at least as an understanding of how momentous what you did was. It's not commonplace at all. People are just used to technology all the time. So it's incredible.
Yeah, we're finding a big overload and maybe too much technology that's available, and we're wondering, are we losing some of our privacy by all the electrons kind of floating around out there, being available for people to get information that maybe they're not
they shouldn't be, right?
conventionally entitled to, whether it's proprietary information about new developments and patented products, and people are using the internet and other technologies to steal what properly belongs to other people, or, of course, the invasion of privacy. It's a difficult challenge that goes along with advancing technology. I'm sure that people many years ago used to walk with great freedom. They don't have to worry about buses running over them or drivers, but now we have to deal with the big traffic jams on freeways, and how that affects our individual lives, just because we have improved transportation for the individual in such a vast improvement.
Well,
Things we
Joanne,
don't-
I think we're at that unfortunate place where we either wrap it up or we have to talk for several more hours because it's just getting too interesting. But it's like this may be a good opportunity to see whether both of you have some final remarks you'd like to make that we didn't get around to, or that you'd like to emphasize before we're done.
Well, right here is a fountain of information. He calls it Space Data Resources and Information. And when I have a question, I dial him up and ask him, hey, what can you tell me about this or that or whatever else? And of course, now I don't have to ask him that much. He just sends it to me via email. And there's so much information available that individuals like me, we just can't absorb it all. And I'm trying to build a team, but I find that people generally don't work for nothing except astronauts. and I have to bring together a sense of belongingness to people, despite what they're doing, which may be in conflict a bit or in different directions, but they can certainly help advise me in what it is I'm trying to do. And using a team comes up with new ideas and comes up with appreciation by other people that is more than just one person's dreams.
Just
I think, excuse me, on my side, it's there is just a huge universe of information now about space. I was this morning looking at some new images right from the surface of Mars from Curiosity rover, checking in on the Chinese mission they just launched yesterday. They're en route to their space module. It's just an incredible sweep of international space activity. And I think we might want to talk about the last point about the book, because there's so much in play in space, whether it's space tourism, new vehicles. Buzz has got a real active website that we try to keep active with all the new information, and also his Twitter account is pretty lively right now. So there's just a lot going on, and it's I expect some wild cards to happen. Some may not be good, some may be terrific. Propulsion breakthroughs to orbital debris problems, we'll see. But it's an exciting agenda.
It is, and I love how your book sort of lays it out so that people catch up, be up to speed, and then also see the vision. I didn't get the app yet, but I understand you have an app for the iPhone where you have information coming from various space sites.
Well,
it's an educational app for iPhone and iPad.
Yeah, my
so
website at buzzaldrin.com, we're trying to keep it as up to date as possible. And then I have an application specifically on a lot of things that I've been doing. We try and keep that up to date, and other news items that you can find right on one application, and it's Buzz Aldrin's Exploration in Space or something like that.
I tweeted about it yesterday, I believe, and I've been to your website, and it is great, and it really information rich. So definitely worth visiting, everybody.
Okay. From me then, I think, thanks to both of you so very much for sharing this vision and helping us get excited about space again, and best of luck on selling this and getting the vision off the ground.
Well, it sells itself. It's just my keeping up with myself and my schedule and other commitments for a person of my age, but I do want to be able to continue this sort of pace because that keeps me out of wondering what it's all about. And when I start wondering what it's all about, I might get a little discouraged.
Yeah.
I will say he's for his age, it's hard to run after a moonwalker, but he's running me. Wow. I don't think he ever really returned to Earth. He's been a cycling spaceship on his own.
Yeah, well, you know, I just saw your appearance with Thomas Dolby. That was great. One of my favorite songs, by the way. You know, and you've been on Dancing with the Stars. You're just a pop culture icon in addition to being a brilliant astronaut. And someone with great vision.
I don't do those things because I have favorite rock music to pay attention to, or I'm light on my feet. I don't play golf because I'm not very good at it, and if I did, I wouldn't have very many people pay attention and say, "Who's this guy? Oh, what did he do in the past?" I wonder if by any chance he has any ideas about what we're doing now and what we ought to be doing in the future. And that's why I do these unusual things. It's somewhat for name recognition and being able to get across my ideas with capable team players like Leonard.
That's right. Very savvy of you. Very savvy.
Yeah, it's a blast.
Oh, I am so honored that you came to visit, and it's great to speak to both of you. And I'll do my best to continue to promote the book because, like I said, I feel it's for everybody, and you've laid a great foundation and a vision for the future.
Well, it's you people that carry out the word over and above what's inside pieces of paper with a little ink on them and a cover. It's enticing, and the people have to get up and turn the pages, not open up their computer. We haven't quite gotten into computerizing things because the publisher says we have to sell books. Okay, so
is it not on Kindle? I haven't looked if it's on Kindle, but surely it's that, right? You've at least got that much, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's on Kindle. Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so very much. And with that, I think we will sign off. And Jeff, it's always a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you, Joanne and Buzz and Leonard, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne and Jeff. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.